Welcome to the Rippy Effect. I'm Jackie Hunter, your host.
Previously, he worked as Director of Education. You are a gastroenterologist.
Welcome to the show. Thank you. And I hail Samantha. Yes.
I have been telling my guests that it's so important for them to drink lots of water.
Welcome to the Rippy Effect. I'm Jackie Hunter, your host, and we have an exciting show for you tonight. I'm especially thrilled that I have my nephew, Brandon Rippy, who's an engineer. You'll meet him later on during the show. But for now, I'm going to share with you a video about a lady named Gladys May West. You might have heard of her or seen something about her on a movie called Hidden Figures. She has made driving so much easier. Let's hear about her story.
Many of us do not know about the hidden figure behind the Global Positioning System, better known as the GPS system. However, it is mathematician Dr. Gladys West whose innovation and genius pioneered the way for the highly valued technology that is installed on all of our smartphones. The trailblazer participated in path-breaking, award-winning astronomical studies that continue to resonate several decades later. And while she wasn't portrayed as a main character in the movie Hidden Figures, she was among the small group of African American women who manually executed computing for the U.S. military and space program. Gone are the days when people stop at gas stations and ask for directions while traveling on the road. If you are using your smartphone and the GPS to reach your destination, you have Dr. Gladys May West to thank. In this original Black Excellence video, we will be featuring Gladys May West. So without further ado, let's get started. 1. West was born in Sutherland, Virginia in 1930. Dr. West was born in Dinwiddie County, a rural county south of Richmond, Virginia. Her mother worked at a tobacco factory, and her father was a farmer who also worked for the railroad. West realized early on that she didn't want to work in the tobacco fields or factories and decided education would be her way out. 2. West received a full-ride scholarship to Virginia State University. The top 2 students at West High School received full scholarships to Virginia State University, a historically Black public university. West was initially unsure what to major in, but ultimately chose to study mathematics. She graduated in 1952 with the Bachelor of Science in Mathematics. After 2 years of teaching, West then returned to VSU to complete her Master of Mathematics degree, graduating in 1955. West eventually earned a second master's degree in public administration from the University of Oklahoma. In 2018, she completed a PhD in public administration at Virginia Tech. 3. West was hired to work at the Naval Surface Warfare Center. Hired in 1956, Dr. West was a programmer in the Dahlgren Division for large-scale computers and a project manager for data processing systems used in the analysis of satellite data. In the early 1960s, she participated in an award-winning astronomical study that proved the regularity of Pluto's motion relative to Neptune. Subsequently, West began to analyze data from satellites, putting together altimeter models of the Earth's shape. She became project manager for the CSAT radar altimetry project, the first satellite that could remotely sense oceans. 4. West met her husband, Ira West, while working at the Naval Weapons Lab. Dr. West met her husband, Ira West, at the Naval Surface Warfare Center Dahlgren Division, where he also worked as a mathematician. They were 2 of only 4 Black employees at the time. They have 3 adult children and 7 grandchildren. As of February 2018, West lives in King George County, Virginia. 5. Gladys's mathematical modeling were eventually incorporated into the GPS. Gladys is an American mathematician whose work on the development of the satellite geodesy models were eventually incorporated into the Global Positioning System. From the mid-1970s through the 1980s, West programmed an IBM supercomputer to deliver increasingly precise calculations to model the shape of the Earth. Generating an extremely accurate model required her to employ complex algorithms to account for variations in gravitational, tidal, and other forces that distort Earth's shape. Dr. West's data ultimately became the basis for the GPS. 6. The GPS is used in almost every smartphone and mapping device. The Global Positioning System is a satellite-based navigation system made up of at least 24 satellites. GPS works in any weather conditions, anywhere in the world, 24 hours a day. Although West and her colleagues worked to make the data, system, and satellites available for military use, the U.S. Department of Defense made it available for civilian and commercial use in the 1980s. Today, it's widely used for navigating directions, map making, land surveying, asset tracking, and many other applications. 7. West was inducted into the U.S. Air Force Hall of Fame in 2018. Dr. West continued to work at Dahlgren for 42 years, retiring in 1998. The Trailblazer has been inducted into the Air Force Space and Missile Pioneers Hall of Fame. A special ceremony was held in West's honor at the Pentagon on December 6, bestowing one of the Air Force's Space Command's highest honors upon the pioneer, who was then 87 years old. Other honors have been bestowed upon West, who was also selected by the BBC as part of their 100 Women of 2018. 8. West is a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. Dr. West's vital contributions to GPS technology remained unknown for decades. Gladys was putting together a short bio about herself for a sorority function that recognized senior members of the chapter. She noted her 42-year career at the Navy base and devoted one line to the fact that she was part of the team that developed the GPS system in the 1950s and 1960s. A fellow sorority member was so blown away by the statement that she decided to share West's amazing story with the world. 9. Even today, Gladys continues to pick a paper map over GPS. Surprisingly, even after playing a vital role in creating the GPS system, Gladys continues to pick a paper map over a tracking system, saying she still trusts her brain above all. 10. West's quote. Over the years, Dr. Gladys West was dedicated to staying true to herself and how she was raised. When you're working every day, you're not thinking, what impact is this going to have on the world? You're thinking, I've got to get this right.
Have you heard of Garrett Morgan? Garrett Morgan was an inventor who lived during the early 1900s. And because of him, we have the gas mask, and he also had a hand in developing the traffic lights. Did you know that? Well, let's watch and learn about him.
Another danger magnet inventor, Garrett Morgan, is inspired by tragedy to create a breathing hood that will save lives.
The Triangle Factory fire was devastating around the country because it highlighted the need for reform in safety practices and in helping to rescue people.
Morgan first creates a hood to protect a person's face from the heat and their eyes from the smoke. But Morgan's designs contain something new. They tackle a major problem: how the rescuer breathes when the air is scorching and full of smoke.
Most of the fire deaths, both civilian and firefighters for the last 150 years, have been from smoke, from the fumes from the burning products.
In a building fire, the air can reach 1100 degrees, hot enough to destroy the lining of the throat and lungs. Morgan develops a filtration system using cotton and fabrics soaked in cold water, removing much of the heat from the air as it enters his mask. But how to withstand the fumes for any length of time? Then he has a moment of unexpected inspiration at a circus.
Apparently, it was a scorchingly hot day, and they were sitting under the big tent. And when the elephants were performing, he noticed that periodically they would go and get themselves a breath of fresh air by sticking their trunk through a seam in the top of the tent.
He refashions his breathing hood, attaching 2 long tubes that reach to the ground.
Morgan's device is simple but genius because what he realizes is that in any fire, the noxious fumes, the carbon monoxide, everything, and the smoke is at the upper level. And there's clean air, pure air at the lower level.
These are the air intake tubes, bringing cleaner air into the mask through its filters. The breathing hood is born. But to prove his mask works, Morgan needs to test it.
People were hesitant to purchase his product or even to try it out because they couldn't believe that an African American could actually develop a product like this and that it would actually work.
Lake Erie, July 24th, 1916. Workers digging a water supply tunnel under the lake hit a pocket of gas. 32 men are trapped underground.
There was chaos, absolute chaos. There was nothing that anyone really could do to help.
What happened was not only had miners been trapped, but their rescuers had gotten into trouble.
They remembered that Garrett Morgan, the inventor, lived here, and they thought maybe these safety hoods could be helpful in retrieving bodies.
And no one was willing to put on his hood and go in. So he did.
Garrett Morgan is about to carry out a very public and life-threatening test of his safety hood. Morgan and his brother venture into the shattered tunnel.
What he saw there, of course, was death and destruction. And because they could breathe relatively freely and not be bothered by the overwhelming fumes, they were able to identify those people who were still alive.
They rescue more than 20 men and retrieve the bodies of those who don't survive.
What better way to silence your skeptics or your critics than to put on your invention, use it, and have it be successful and save lives?
Morgan's safety hood will prove to be a boon for rescue workers for decades to come. But Garrett Morgan chooses not to make a fortune from his invention. Instead, he gifts it to the state.
He gave his patent to the government for their use because he understood the importance of the safety device, of the breathing device in World War I, and knew that it would be an important piece of military kit.
If I could meet Garrett Morgan, I'd give him a big kiss and a hug. It's the greatest invention that a firefighter could ever have.
Some towns have only one. Some have one every few feet. Their 3 eyes look down on passing vehicles, giving silent commands that millions follow daily. This is the history of the traffic light. To explore the origins of the traffic light, we must first venture to London, 1866. A time when 1,102 people were killed and 1,134 injured on city roadways. A man by the name of John Peake Knight devised a manual gas-powered color lighting system to help regulate horse-drawn traffic. That system was based on railroad signals using the colors red for stop and green for go. On December 9th, 1868, the world's first traffic signal was installed near Westminster Bridge at the corners of Great George and Bridge Streets. Before this time, traffic was directed by police officers using hand signals. With this new color lighting system, carriage drivers and pedestrians could better see the traffic flow. Unfortunately, only a few months after the traffic light's installation, a gas leak caused one of the lights to explode, severely injuring the police officer operating the device. Due to this incident, the new traffic system fell out of public favor. While this looked to be the end of the traffic light, the device made a surprising return in 1912. With the popularity of the automobile over the horse-drawn carriage on the rise, More and more traffic accidents occurred all over the world. Drivers needed help, so new traffic signals emerged in various forms. Lester Wire, a policeman in Salt Lake City, Utah, created the electric form of the traffic signal. This version of the stoplight, designed in 1914 by James Hogue, included a buzzer to provide a warning for color changes. As an added bonus, fire stations and police could control the devices in case of an emergency. These new innovations paved the way for the modern traffic light that we know today. By 1922, many traffic signals were being automated on timers. American inventor Garrett Morgan witnessed a very serious accident between an automobile and horse-drawn carriage on a street corner in Cincinnati, Ohio. Inspired to prevent further accidents like that from happening, the inventor filed a U.S. patent and changed the world. Morgan's version had 3 light positions instead of just 2: red, amber, and green. The middle position, as we know today being yellow, allowed for traffic to be warned that a stop was coming. This greatly reduced the risk of a traffic incident, and over time, Morgan's 3-position signal took shape into the traffic lights we see today. Currently, modern traffic lights are completely computerized. This became possible in the 1950s due to pressure plates being placed at intersections. Once a car was on a plate, computers would register the vehicle waiting at the light. Such advances allowed for better traffic flow during rush hour and safer intersections for pedestrians. Toronto, Ontario was the first city to completely computerize its entire traffic signal systems by 1963. So the next time you see that red glow telling you to stop, realize just how much went into making you safe in your vehicle.
There are so many things that have been invented by Black inventors, and we use them every day and never even realized it. Well, now I'm going to share with you a visit of some students to the Mechanical Engineering Institute. And it's so exciting to see young people learn with hands-on activities. So after that short video of students learning how to be an engineer, my interview with my nephew will follow.
My name is Camille Norega. I've come today to the Institution of Mechanical Engineers with my Year 4 class to take part in STEM activities. We are learning about mechanical engineering and how to use different STEM activities so the children can be creative and develop new skills.
Hi, my name is Damien. I am 8 years old and I am from Trelgrove Primary School. I am an Institution of Mechanical Engineers for my school trip. Today we are taking part in STEM activities, who can build this highest building or highest tower. I learned it's not about how high it goes, it's about the structure, because without the structure it wouldn't balance properly. We came second place in 1 meter and 93 centimeters. I want to be a mechanical engineer when I grow up.
The children are very excited to be here. They've learnt a lot about buildings, making things taller. They've learnt about structures and how important it is to have a structure that is stable. They've used their imagination. I think it's a good opportunity for a lot of the girls within my class as well, because this is the opportunity for them to develop and to learn about mechanical engineering. They've had an opportunity to be leaders as well as working in groups. So yeah, it's a fantastic day.
Welcome back to the Rippy Effect. I'm Jackie Hunter, your host, and today I have a very special guest, my nephew, Brandon Rippy. Welcome to the show, Brandon.
Hey, how you doing? How you doing, Auntie?
I'm so happy to have you here. You can't imagine. Well, Brandon is here because he is a civil engineer. And my understanding of what a civil engineer is someone who solves problems that deal with construction. but I'm sure that Brandon is going to enlighten you and let you know more about what he does in his job as a civil engineer.
Okay, so being or becoming a civil engineer, the subject for civil engineering is very broad. It covers a lot of different types of engineering within civil engineering. But if you want to, I guess, kind of picture what civil engineers are, they're basically the engineers of civilization. So if you have a city, civil engineers play a large role in the function of a city, or I guess any type of large interaction amongst people. So civil engineers design our roads, our transportation systems. Civil engineers design our water systems, the things most people really don't even consider, or I guess may take for granted. So the design of our water infrastructure, our wastewater infrastructure. I guess some of the more popular forms of civil engineering are structural engineers, who are also civil engineers. Structural engineers design the buildings that we live in, we work in, and we play in.
Well, I remember one time I was going to do a small subdivision, just 8 houses.
Right.
And I had to have an engineer to design, create the lots and tell us exactly what you're telling me, where the waters would be hooked up and where the power would come in. So I understand that part of being a civil engineer.
Yeah, so it's so broad. The particular, or I guess the type of engineering that I'm in is in construction. So a lot of civil engineers go work for large construction companies. I guess as a foundation, you have a lot of people who get the degrees in civil engineering. They become project managers or construction firms or run construction companies. There's a lot of engineering involved in the construction process. The names of those types of civil engineers, it can vary. The type of engineer that I am is called a formwork engineer. I design formwork.
Oh, okay.
I guess like forming, like when you form something or when you form a mold. Something
like a building, like a huge skyline.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much reinforced concrete. That's the modern construction material. I guess if you think about it, concrete is a mixture of different aggregates is what we call them, or rocks, just different sizes of aggregates. And cement, water and cement. Those components with steel reinforcement, and that makes a reinforced concrete structure. And it's a very popular building material because it's strong, and it's you can if you ever mix the bag of concrete or mix the bag of cement, it's a liquid, so you basically can form it into any shape that you can form it, which is where the word form or formwork engineer comes from.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. So we design the forms that the buildings are poured into to create a reinforced concrete building.
That sounds exciting. I like the sound of that. I used to have a construction company. I had one for 7 years with a partner who was he was an industrial arts teacher. And so I really find construction fascinating. But with COVID-19, with the coronavirus being a part of society now. How has that affected what you do in civil engineering?
Well, I guess things have changed a lot. For the most part, most engineers, we work in front of a computer screen. We spend some time out in on actual sites in the field or whatever, but most of the work that I do is done with a calculator, a few programs, some drafting software on the computer. So I've been working from home more, but that's just a role. I guess it's kind of unique to my particular role in construction.
Mm-hmm.
And occasionally I will go out to construction sites. We call it the field. So the actual people who run the construction sites are the field crews.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much nothing has changed for them because construction was deemed a essential business.
That's true.
Yeah,
But
go
they
ahead.
find themselves having to wear the mask and do some social distancing.
Yeah, so there's been, I guess, an increase in hygiene. One of the first things that was introduced was wearing masks because sometimes the workers do work in relatively close proximity.
Mm-hmm.
Hand washing, and things of those nature. When you get into concrete construction, high-rise concrete construction, it's already a high-risk business. So there's a lot of safety precautions that are always taking place on a construction site. We have individual people responsible at each site whose sole purpose is to make sure safety protocols are being followed. So it's just one more or a few more things added to their daily role to keep the job site as safe as possible. In construction, the margins are already thin, so companies who are involved in construction don't make a significant amount of profit.
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest expense on a construction site is having issues that involve safety. So if you have incidents on the job, it's costly. So it's in the best interest of most construction companies to make sure that safety protocols are being followed if they plan to stay in business.
Yeah, I remember there is some company, not a company, but there is a government group called OSHA, I believe.
Yeah, OSHA is a government agency, and they are responsible for I guess regulating businesses that are who engage in risk. Essentially, they have the power to fine and penalize companies for not taking or following guidelines that are involved in their industry. It's not just construction, but construction is regulated by OSHA.
I see. So there are some young viewers who are probably interested in becoming a civil engineer. Would you like to give them some ideas what they can do to get into your field?
Yeah. So, well, first off, math is a fundamental skill if you plan to be any type of engineer, not just civil, but all. Or the foundation skills of math, and if you like science, then it should be something that it would be easy to stay engaged for quite a while. If you ever, I guess, wonder how things are made or actually built, things that we may take for granted. engineers, we're pretty much, we are the inventors in society.
So being very curious, good math skills, science skills, and being very curious.
Yeah, very curious. And you will pick up, you know, the writing skills. Reading and writing doesn't hurt to have good skills in pretty much anything you do in life.
I agree.
Yeah. And then you want to get into a ABET accredited engineering program when you go off to college. So just make sure that the institution that you decide to study in is ABET accredited. ABET accredited for civil engineering is important because down the line, when you want to become a person who's licensed to practice as an engineer, you will need the ABET accreditation in order to get in line to take those exams and to become licensed.
Okay.
That kind of just, that gives you the ability to, you know, determine your own destiny as an engineer, is to have an engineering license.
Thank you so much. Good advice. Okay, well, thank you so much for being on the show, and come back anytime.
Okay.
And we'll be right back with more of the Rippy Effect. This concludes our show. And I just want to thank my nephew, Brandon Rippy, for his interview this evening. Tune in next week when I will be interviewing Delia Tate. Delia is a Cistrix engineer. And if you don't know what that is, think about who's designing and maintaining the Zoom platforms or creating computer applications. That's what that kind of engineer does. So, see you next week. And remember, STEM careers are the careers for now and the careers of the future. I'm Jackie Hunter, your host of the Rippy Effect. Stay tuned.